Welcome to Crane's Barn Grill. Okay, so I'm breaking in on this video at the beginning because when I was editing this video for episode 8, I noticed a couple of things. And the first thing I noticed that if I edit some of the things that I edited out, if I took them and put them all together and put them with some music, it was pretty funny. So if you wait until the very end, right before I say goodbye, I put that part in, and if you watch it, it gives a really accurate summation of what I thought about this episode. And not only what I thought about this episode, but what I thought about the entire season, with the exclusion of episode 6, because episode 6 was kind of all over the place as far as what I thought about it. And mostly I thought that one was just, or at least when I went back and looked at it, I thought that episode was, I don't know how to say it, it's kind of dumb the more I went back and looked at it. But as far as the rest of the season and this episode, it's a montage clip of things I cut out, but it shows really well what I felt about this episode and a lot of this season. The second thing is that I edited in a little clip, and this clip is mostly for people that don't know a whole lot about Lord of the Rings and never read the books or anything like that, or just for people who have only seen the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, but don't know a whole lot about all the lore and don't know a whole lot about, especially Galadriel, because this clip is about Galadriel, and I put this clip in right after Galadriel and Halbrand have a scene together, pretty long scene together. And the clip comes in right after that before it goes to the next scene. I put this clip in, and it shows a really good contrast, and it shows why people who do know the lore and have read the books and have watched all the movies, and why they like Galadriel's portrayal in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, even though a lot of people don't like, a lot of people that are into the Lord don't really care for the Hobbit. The portrayal of Galadriel was still true. I mean, her essence. Even though what she did in the Hobbit, I don't think, I'm almost positive it didn't happen in the books, but her essence and who she was. So I edited in a clip that'll let you see the contrast of why people who know the lore don't like Galadriel. Like me, the entire time I was watching this season, I was saying that's not Galadriel. I have to think of her as a different elf because that's not who Galadriel was. They took Galadriel, who was one of the most powerful beings in Middle-earth, who was one of the most powerful beings in all of Tolkien's writing, or at least one of the most powerful elves, and dumbed her down, made her just a regular elf that carried a sword and wore armor and led armies, when that's not who Galadriel is. That's not what she would have done. That's just not Galadriel. She was above all that. She could get all that same stuff done without having to pick up a sword, without having to lead a cavalry charge. She didn't need to do that. So that's the two things that I had, that when I was editing the video, I noticed that I want to put these two things in. And I hope you enjoy it. So back to the watch and review. So tonight we're watching Lord of the Rings. Episode, season 1, episode 8. So this is the finale. And after thinking about it for, it's been a couple of days since I watched 7. I watched 6 and 7 on the same afternoon. And 7 was boring. There was nothing in 7, so there isn't even talk about what happened in 7. Except for I'm not sure why the Númenóreans are leaving when they could just stay there. I guess it's because the story needs her to go back so her and Pharazôn and Elendil can have their thing. But the one thing that did bug me because I started thinking about episode 6 again was, me and one of our friends discussing episode 6. It made me realize they really cheated Isildur. Isildur should have landed on the shore, and like Galadriel coming on the ship, he should have had a thing leaving the ship where he's going to lay. This is where his kingdom's going to be, right there where they get off and they go fight and everything. I mean, they go across the mountains. That's where, the Vale right there. That's where his first, I believe it's his first kingdom, where he sets up his first city. It turns into the Morgul Vale later, but I believe that's right there where he set that up, and that's right there where Osgiliath is going to be. And that's his kingdom where him and his brother come over. And it should have been a moment for at least the Tolkien fans. It could have been a moment that's where Isildur is going to establish his kingdom, and his dad Elendil is going to be up north. But it could have been a moment between them. Instead of having them discuss stuff standing next to a horse, you could have had them discussing as they're traveling across the land, as they're maybe make some comments or something about how, look at this land, I like this, or something. Just anything. That would have been nice. I felt like that cheated. That cheated us, and it cheated Isildur of that. I think that's the only other thing I really remembered and kind of noticed and was thinking about. I thought there was one other, but I can't remember what it was. So I think that the meteor dude is going to have to be a wizard. If I had to guess, with a lot of the other dumb things that they've done in this show, like with the stupid sword, turning it and releasing water to make Mount Doom. So now I have to think of Waldrag every time I see Mount Doom, and that he's the reason it's there, which is irritating. Because Morgoth made all that, made Mordor. So if they're going to go with that level of the other stuff that they did, like when they gave away them running across the field before they even got to that town to save that town. So you knew they were coming, so there was no surprise there. So the thing that would be the least surprising, so that's what I'm going to go with, because so far all the things that they've tried to kind of set up have fallen flat and didn't work, and we're not surprising at all, and we're not shocking, and we're not like, wow, look at that. None of it. So if I have to go with the most obvious, meteor dude is going to be Gandalf. Now I hope it's not. I hope it's one of the blue wizards, because we don't know much about them. And they, when they came over here, they went to the east, I believe, kind of over there where they're at now, kind of maybe a little farther east. And I'm sure Halbrand's going to be Sauron, because that's the most obvious thing. And that's what they've been doing so far. They've been trying to set stuff up, but it's fallen flat, and it's never really been a big surprise, whatever they've done. Plus, there's certain characters like Galadriel, they try to make it a surprise, or they try to put her in peril. She's not going to die. It's Galadriel. She's in the Lord of the Rings. Isildur's not going to die. He has to cut the ring off Sauron, later on. And his dad's right there, and, because he picks up his dad's sword after his dad falls. So Elrond's not going to be any peril because he's in Lord of the Rings. So all these characters like that, they're not going to be any peril. So if they do make him Gandalf, so if they make him one of the blue wizards, they can put him in peril. Because I don't know what happened to them. I can't remember if they even said what happened to them. But Gandalf, we know what happened to Gandalf. So whatever they can't put him in any peril, really. They could, but it's not going to be suspenseful at all. So, but I'm sure he's going to probably be Gandalf, hopefully a blue wizard instead. And I'm sure Halbrand's going to be Sauron. Which, if he is Sauron, what was he doing in the middle of the ocean, and he has happened to run into Galadriel? Which that makes that part really cheesy. It was cheesy anyway, because I guess I could just discount that, because the whole thing of them on the raft and meeting Galadriel is because she shouldn't have jumped off the boat to begin with. She shouldn't have been there. But even if you're going to have her leave in a little raft or something, because was she going to swim across the ocean? That's idiotic. Yeah. So let's see if we're right. Let's go ahead and get this on the run. There's the meteor dudes, so we're starting off with the Harfoots. Not a good sign. They're the most boring and most useless part. Because they were going after him, so they're going to run into him. But who's going to find him first? Oh, and the apple. From his friend. He is good. Every time something happens, it's because they butted in. You know, the Harfoots butted in. Not that he did anything. He was in the middle of doing stuff and they butted in. Oh, he dropped his apple. How far did it go? How did it go? That's like 40 feet away. How did the apple end up 40 feet away? So who's this? Nori. Why would Nori hide? Oh, look at her. Look at her face. That's not Nori. Yeah, there's the eyes. That's good. Yes, it's that chicken white. Wonder how you cast for that. Say, we need a woman who looks really weird already to make her look even weirder. I mean, do you volunteer for that part and go, oh, I can look like a weirdo? So they think he's Sauron. He's not Sauron. Yeah. They're going to try to throw you off, but they're not going to do that. He's not Sauron. So the title sequence, The Rings of Power, and we have yet to see a ring. A ring 1. Nobody's even discussed a ring. And this is the last episode. But man, there's scenery shots or there wide sweeping shots of the land with the CGI cities. Those are amazing. All right, Galadriel in slow motion riding a horse again. That's what we all wanted to see, I'm sure. No.
To be presented with a means of saving all Elvendom. And we have none.
Only there was some way of doing more.
That's all right. Halbrand's on his way. And since he's Sauron, he'll help you.
The sun itself began as something no bigger than the palm of my hand.
And how could we possibly match the powers that
Yeah,
wrought
because the
sun?
sun was made from
We
the
were out of
gold
time.
tree. A gold tree and the silver tree at the beginning. And it was made from a piece of fruit, I think, from the gold tree.
We must inform the High King of our failure.
He made the sun and a
The
leaf
elves
from the
must
silver
abandon
tree. He
the
made
shores.
the moon. Manwë made the moon. Well, see, there's no suspense in this, too. Are they going to find out how to do it? I don't know. The show's only called The Rings of Power. And we know that the rings were created, so we know they're going to create them. So there's no suspense in even setting it up like that. Why would you set it up where they had a time limit? They had to get the rings. That doesn't add any urgency. We know they create the rings. So instead, should have just showed them that they created the rings. It shouldn't have any urgency towards it.
King of the South.
Because there isn't any, because we know it happens. I was just jumped in the water and just happened to run into him in a big, huge ocean. Why aren't they more, shouldn't they be more weirded out, her being here? She should be in Valinor. She should be in the Undying Lands. Why aren't they like shocked and like, what are you doing here? What happened? Shouldn't that have been the very first questions they asked her?
I should have trusted you. It is a mistake I will not make again.
I leapt from that ship.
I leapt from that ship because
I
I'm a
believed in
crazy
my heart
person.
I was not yet worthy of it. And when I surfaced,
That's
all I could do was
that's
swim.
not the reason.
I did
Yes,
not
because
cross
you
that
wanted to
bitter
get
ocean,
Sauron. You were angry and you wanted to get Sauron.
only to drown now.
Yeah, because you're in the middle of the ocean. What else were you going to do?
I have
You
missed
didn't choose wisely. You jumped in the
What were we
ocean.
to do?
The only
If
thing
that
we can
raft hadn't shown up, you'd have died, I'm sure.
do, swim.
Oh, this dialogue is so clunky. And speaking of her husband and Elrond, so
Who's that?
Celeborn, her husband, and her, they had a daughter, and their daughter married Elrond.
Who's that?
So where's Celeborn at?
It's Galadriel here.
It's Halbrand. So he's up and okay now, huh?
Shouldn't you be resting?
No, I'm Sauron. I don't need rest.
This was the workshop of Celebrimbor.
He's not here, is he?
Well, as a matter of fact, he is.
Has he worn, is that the same outfit he's worn the entire 8 episodes? Of course, he wasn't in every episode, but does he wear the same thing every day, Celebrimbor?
The master I apprenticed to used to speak of the wonders of your craft.
The Masters you apprentice, would that be
Never dreamed I'd
Morgoth?
ever get the chance to see them in person.
You were Smith.
Well,
Yeah, because I don't know if the
nothing like
show,
history.
and he was a smith, I believe. I believe
These gems,
Sauron was a smith.
I've never seen anything like them.
What do you
But I don't think they explain the show
use them for?
how good Celebrimbor was.
Jewelcraft managed to
Dwarves from everywhere used to come and work with him, and people did from everywhere because he was the best smith and artisan and everything, the best. And I don't like what they're doing with Mithril. Have you thought of combining it? It's Celebrimbor, of course he's thought of that. He doesn't need help on the smithing part. He needs help on the probably the magic and thinking of doing a ring in the first place. Celebrimbor would know that.
Precious. I've seen a trace of nickel added to iron to make a blade lighter and stronger.
Well, of course, Celebrimbor would see that too. He's the best at this time. The best, like ridiculously good. He wouldn't need help with that part. He would need help thinking of the rings, is what I would
an
think.
intriguing suggestion.
Call it a gift.
A gift. Sauron. They're just putting it right out there, aren't they?
It will be our duty to forge for him
See, that's the thing. Pharazôn wanted immortality.
granting him the immortality in stone.
And Sauron convinces him to go attack Valinor to get
And attain it.
that immortality. And it doesn't work.
Craftsmen from across Numenor have been summoned to capture his visage.
But she's an architect. Was she going to be an architect or go on to be an architect? Why? I guess she could design the tomb, but she wouldn't make the statue part of him or anything.
Granted 1 hour with the king.
Really? Like, is that her? She would be. That what she'd be hired for. She would be hired as an architect to try to do that. And why do they hire apprentices instead of actual? Did I miss that part? The talking during it?
I know what you have been doing in the dark of night when you thought all eyes were asleep.
I'm sorry. Your handmaid will be back in a moment, my king.
And there is still time
Time for what?
to warn you, young Miriam.
You're mistaken. I'm not.
Queen, yet no, but you will be. So know this. If the
You will be. Pharazôn is supposed to take over and force her to marry him. That's what should happen. But that's probably not what they'll do. Because for some reason they paid $1 billion or something to buy just the names of characters and not the stories. I mean, you could have done this whole thing with different names. Did you just want the names? Because you're not doing any of the story.
don't do as I did. I look
Not how it happened anyway, unless you think you're a better writer than Tolkien.
separate what is from
And I can't see
what was from what was.
writers of a TV show in a room going, no, I'm better than, I mean, I can see him doing it, but they shouldn't go, I'm a better writer than Tolkien. I know his material better. So I'm going to completely change his story instead of following along with his story because it's going to be better because he was a genius and you're not. Got the Palantir. So she's going to see the Palantir, and the Palantir kind of drove him crazy, I guess, looking into it all the time. I think that happened to somebody else. I can't remember who.
One object for all Middle-earth. Precisely what manner of object?
It would be smaller than previously imagined. Something that could be carried,
A scepter, perhaps.
A sword?
or perhaps a crown. A circular form will be ideal, allowing the light to arc back upon itself in one unbroken round.
And you would place all that power upon the brow of one being?
Not just anyone being High King. You.
So Gil-galad is actually being the only one sensible right now. You don't want to put all that
Perilous are these
in the hands of one person.
Sometimes the perilous path is the only path. I would not be standing here otherwise.
You should not be standing here at all.
I know, I can't believe they're not making a bigger deal about that she's jumped off a ship and was going to swim across the ocean.
Test Celebrimbor's theory.
Our time runs short.
Yes, that is why.
Shorter than you know. Soon the last will fall. And unless our people leave these shores, so shall we. There is no elf in Middle-earth who wanted a solution more than I.
Do the writers of this show realize that most of the people that are watching this have seen Lord of the Rings, so they know that Elrond and Galadriel and all them are fine?
Almost had it sooner.
So they know nothing happens here?
Speaking with the
They know it's going to work out. They know that Sauron helped create the rings. Galadriel says it at the beginning. He helped create the rings.
Crafting a new kind.
You know? And so we know it's going to happen. So why put a time limit like this?
Not of the flesh, but over flesh.
That's what Adar said.
This is a power of the unseen world. You are hereby commanded to disband the city and return to Lindon immediately. All of you.
Oh, the tension of they're going to do it. Because it's called Rings of Power. We know they create the rings. There's no tension here. We're just trying to find out how do they do it.
Power over flesh. Where did you hear them?
I was conferring with my smiths, I think. I believe those are my words.
Was Halbrand with you?
Why would you immediately suspect Halbrand? Because he's the only other one there?
It's over.
But was he? I mean, there was lots of soldiers and everybody else there. Guards.
I am sorry.
I guess because just them two came back, maybe?
It is a fool's hope, Elrond. Merely that, nothing more.
Hope is never mere. Not even when it is meager.
Yeah. So they did all this just so they could have this. Elrond could tell him the same line back when we don't need all this. We know they make the rings. Again, the show's called The Rings of Power. Now I can see Halbrand, Sauron, helping Celebrimbor, make the rings and do all that stuff like that, but I don't see him giving a lot of advice. I mean, as far as how to make them, because Celebrimbor is he's a master at that. Has Celebrimbor ever changed clothes?
Anything you can find on the...
3 weeks for a labor that could take 3 centuries.
Constraint can be the very progenitor of invention.
Speak of this to no one.
Celebrimbor will find a
Always like how people think if I tell them to speak of this to no one, they won't. That makes me want to speak to him more because I'm like, why should I? Why is this a secret?
I can.
That can backfire on you.
Tell you the truth, I can still hardly believe it.
So she was all behind him, full force. And that one little thing now she thinks what? That he's a bad guy? Just like that.
He pushed me to heights that no one else could have. I will never forget that.
She does have pretty eyes, though.
Do not be afraid, Master. To bring you to
So now we're back with the 3 albino ladies.
You know them already. The stars. It is called the Hermit's Hat.
There's his stars.
A pattern visible in but one place. Far to the east, the land.
That doesn't make any sense. If the Earth is flat right now, you could be able to see any of the stars at any time. You would think.
For fire obeys your will. For you, our Lord Sauron. In time, he will learn to control his powers. For now, bind him. What is it?
Well, what is it? So they know that they're there. Okay.
Where'd the third one go?
And they're not very quiet at all. So they know they're there.
Chance.
No, better 3 because you know where they all are. Oh, is that? Ah, it's a shapeshifter that's tied up. Ah, okay. Well, you're just going to hold on to his leg? And you're dead. That was pretty cool. Like that transition, that was kind of cool.
Master, calm yourself.
What's she doing? just gonna push you back. Why is she twisting from side to side? Just to show off? Those little rocks knocked you all off your game, huh? Just gonna set everything on fire? Everything?
Take it.
We set the whole Greenwood on fire.
To Shadow I bid you return.
He is not Sauron. He is the other.
I'm good. Tournament a race.
Given your loss, I would understand it if upon our return you wished to take a leave of duty.
This part doesn't have suspenseful either because we know Isildur's alive. He's in the next one. Elendil's even in, like at the beginning when Galadriel's reading the story on the Fellowship of the Ring. He's there. And he picks up his dad's sword and Isildur does and cuts the ring off. So we know Isildur's here. So this whole line of questioning here is dumb.
Yet at every turn I made the choices I did because...
Why, Elendil?
Because Elendil does not merely mean one who loves the stars.
That the way of the faithful is committing to pay the price.
And I, for one, will see to it that we make the end worth the price.
Come what may.
Come what may.
Well, so they can team up against Pharazôn.
Elendil.
Oh, the flags are black. Her dad died. That's the black flags. I can see Pharazôn being upset at this point in time. Is that the little forge? They guess they can work at that little forge instead of the big one because they're just making like a ring. But I can see Pharazôn being upset that the king's died at that point in time. But then he takes over and he tries to force, or no, he does force Meryl to marry him, and that way he can become king, I believe, or he becomes king and then forces her to marry him, something like that.
Supposing we've been using too much force.
The metals shouldn't be forced to join, but more drawn or coaxed together. Now,
Wouldn't Celebrimbor have already thought of that or something? I mean, that's kind of a basic thing. You just mix them together, or you use pressure to put them together. I guess there's two ways. But there's two different ways. You don't do one, do the other one. So she's found out what? He's not the king? Whatever that she told everybody there was. She told everybody he's the king. She told even him that he was the king. That's all her fault.
We need two. See for yourself.
Not until you tell me who you are.
You know who I am.
Who you really are.
I don't know. You've known this whole time who he really is, and he keeps telling you he's not.
There is no king of the Southlands.
Shouldn't you have
The
checked
line
that
was
beforehand?
broken. The last man to bear your crest died over
You should have
1,000
known
years
that.
ago. He had no heir.
And somebody in that town should have known that too. So they should have known. I mean, nobody told us any kind of history, so nobody knew that the last king, they had no heir. Come on.
I told you I found it on a dead
He
man.
did tell you that.
No, on the raft, you saved me.
On the raft.
No.
You saved me.
You convinced Miriel to save
You
the men of
said,
Middle
yeah, you saved
You
her.
convinced her. I wanted
Yeah.
to remain in Numenor.
You tell me your name.
I have been awake since before the breaking of the first silence. I have had many names.
Is he in her mind? Because that's what one of Galadriel's gifts is. She can telepathy or get in someone's mind.
On your feet now.
Get out of my mind.
Please, sister.
kept it safe all this time, just as your fellow elves are seeking to do this very moment. Do you remember
What is his plan for her?
what I whispered to you under this very tree?
Yeah, don't tell them I'm Sauron.
Touch the darkness once more.
Galadriel, come back to me. Galadriel. Look at me! Galadriel, look at me. You know who I am.
Yeah, what is Sauron's plan with
I
her?
am a
Is he
friend.
trying to
You're a friend of Morgoth's.
get her not to say anything?
When
This only
Morgoth
thing,
was
or
defeated.
trying to team up with her?
After our victory, you said that whatever I'd done before, I could be free of it
You
now.
deceived me.
I told you the truth. I told you that I had done evil, and you did not care.
You
Weighed
did.
against
You did
our
tell him that.
future.
But that's something
There's no
an evil
such
person
future.
tells you, uses your own words against you, and
Isn't
you
there?
know when they know that's not what you meant. You meant if you were a mortal man, just a regular guy, and you did some bad stuff. You know she didn't mean if you're Sauron, we can
I alone
forgive you.
can see
That's
your
not what.
greatness.
That's not what she meant.
I would make you a queen.
And you, my king. The Dark Lord.
That is the way to
No.
get to the real Galadriel.
Not dark.
Like in the books, would be to play on her
But with you at my side,
that she wants to be queen. To play on her,
save this little earth.
you know, her pride and her
Safe
ambition.
or rule.
I see no difference.
And that is why I will never be at your side.
You need me.
I should have left you on the sea.
A sea that you were on because the elves cast you out. What will they do when you tell them that you are my ally? When you tell them that Sauron lives because of you!
And you will die because of me!
He does kind of have her over a barrel. Does she fall in the water? So I edited in a clip that'll let you see the contrast of why people who know the lore don't like Galadriel. Like me, the entire time I was watching this season, I was saying that's not Galadriel. I have to think of her as a different elf.
I come for Mithrandir, and I will leave with him. If you try to stop me, I will destroy you.
You have no power here. You are nameless. Formless. The void from whence you
Without having to pick up a sword, without having to lead a cavalry charge. She did.
Is it done?
Galadriel, you're as wet as a river rock. Why?
You're not going to tell them that you know that Sauron's here? Hey, Sauron is here.
Galadriel?
Galadriel. So you're going to blurt out, Sauron, he's alive, he's here.
He's gone.
Why?
I doubt he will return.
Explain. She's not going to answer.
Should he ever,
Why
none
is
of
she
us
going to
are
answer?
treat with him again.
Yeah, where's Halbrand?
What happened by that stream?
Good question,
Spoke
Elrond.
to me once of a mistake.
You are making that promise very difficult to keep.
Were it easy, it would not require trust.
That's not true. Usually trust is easy. No, I trust you, you're good. That's what you normally say to somebody? So he goes, hey, I'm going to do this like that. I can't tell you right now. I go, no, I trust you, you're good.
Proceed.
Hey, can I borrow your car? Yeah, you're good. I trust you. Trust's usually easy, not hard.
We must make 3.
So it was Galadriel's idea to make 3 rings? And why are they making the elf rings before they make the other rings?
2 will divide.
But with 3, there is balance.
Powers we forge today must be for the elves alone.
I have determined that the purity of the lesser ores in the alloy is crucial.
So just the elves are going to get it? Maybe they're going to, next season, they'll go, oh, we got to balance it out more to have the dwarves and men do it also, maybe?
I need gold and silver from Valinor.
Oh, her dagger.
True creation requires sacrifice.
You know they make the 3 rings and the other rings because it's in the Lord of the Rings. So you know that stuff's made. So why did they need to make it urgent? Because by making it urgent, the show's urgent, but you don't feel any urgency because you know what happens. And when they said, hey, we're going to make the 3 rings, it didn't feel like, hey, they thought of it. I should have been like, yeah, they thought of it. Oh, they figured it out. I didn't feel anything.
Sure you have.
Now, don't try to do something with a dad and a daughter. That'll get me emotional, even if it is dumb.
Water and air.
Just because I have a daughter and
never know when you'll need a drink downstream,
and I always get emotional
manners is as
whenever it's like a dad and daughter scene, and a lot of times even a father-son scene. So don't try to get me emotional with the Harfoots now.
I was listening to all of it, Father.
Find where the river runs, where the sparrows learn their songs.
I will, Mother. And I'll be careful.
Oh my gosh, this is taking forever. Yeah, how long can we hold this hugging scene?
Oh, go on.
I'm supposed to feel something and I don't.
Before you lose your nerve.
I feel like, can we get to the rest of the show?
Are you certain?
More than ever.
Well, they're all waving at you.
There it is.
Are you sure?
Not entirely. There's a sweet smell on the air this way.
Gandalf.
Eleanor Brandyfoot.
The air doesn't smell as bad down here. You follow your nose. So it's Gandalf. So we know it's Gandalf, and then we knew it was Sauron when he said, take this as a gift. So now we know who he is. I'm assuming that's all we're going to get from them. Melt the dagger down. We can't just melt the whole thing down like that because the blade's not going to be silver or gold. The blade's going to be steel. So you want just this, you want just the gold and just the silver from the dagger. So it's not just going to melt all together and then you go pour it into. That's not how that works. You've got to separate out the different components. Gold, silver, because steel is like what, iron mixed with whatever and it turns into steel. And it's just going to drop the mithril in and it's all going to mix together with steel and everything. So I guess if you heat it up and spin it, they all go together. They all are coaxed together. The one looked like it was still red hot and they're just going to pick it up with their fingers. So they're making the rings, and I guess Galadriel ends up with the ring, but right now I wouldn't trust her with the ring. She hadn't even... Why hasn't she told him that that's Sauron? She still has told him that's Sauron. Ugh, that's Sauron. Then he finds the scroll, so now he's going to find out that's Sauron, or find out that he's not the king at least. Because that's all that says, is that he's not really the king. That's all it says. He's not really the king of the Southlands. And you're just going to put an uncut gem in there? You're not going to make it a really nice cut stone or anything? Just a uncut gem. He's going to sit there and smile at each other. He's not going to go, hey, who's this guy? Well, actually, would Elrond even know? He would just know that's not the king. This should be way more exciting. I should feel something. But it's called Lord of the Rings, so I knew they were going to make the rings. And they rushed it so much. Like, you didn't know what they're going to do, and then bam, they just made them. This should feel like a way bigger deal. So she knows that he knows that Halbrand isn't the king of the Southlands, but that doesn't say he's Sauron. See, the music is trying to make you think this is a big deal, and I don't feel like it's a big deal. So he looks like Halbrand in a black cloak, is what he looks like. That's it. He doesn't look like an imposing Sauron, the most evil thing on the planet at that time. That's it? That's it? So it just ends like, that should have felt like a much bigger deal. It should have felt like, oh man, it's over, what? I just feel like, it was all right. That's all I feel. It was all right. You know, and like at the end of the other episodes, I had a lot to say about the episode. This, I'm like, not much to say. I mean, I thought it was going to be Gandalf. He is. I thought it was going to be Sauron. He is. Pharazôn and, but Muriel and Elendil are going to team up against Pharazôn, I guess. But we don't know that anybody's doing anything. I didn't feel, I mean, you know, they're like, oh, he's arguing with Galadriel, Halbrand was, but we know he's Sauron, so of course he's going to be a bad guy. That wasn't shocking. What? Sauron's yelling at Galadriel? No, Sauron's yelling at somebody. That's, of course, he's Sauron. It's not shocking or unexpected. And did he want to team up with Galadriel? Yeah, like that was going to happen. We know that, and why even bring that up? We know that doesn't happen. We know her in the Lord of the Rings. So you're doing stuff that we know how the thing ends. So why do it? That's why you stick with like the Arondir and Bronwyn. We don't know how that ends. You should have made, instead of making him Gandalf, make him the blue wizard. We don't know how that goes. So I don't. We know how it was underwhelming. It was just, like if I go back to work in a couple of days, and when I go back to work, I'm going to be like, I won't even think of the show. I won't think, hey, I want to talk about the ending with the thing. I was just like, Like I said, there's another guy at work that he watches this show. I didn't even know it until I asked him one day. Because it's not a show you talk about. I know, like one of the girls was watching the Game of Thrones one. She's asked, he's like, have you watched Game of Thrones yet? Oh, great, you need to watch it so we can talk about it. She's excited. Nobody's excited. I haven't heard anybody excited about Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power. I haven't heard anybody talk. None of my friends go, oh, have you watched it yet? Are you going to watch it? Oh, you need to watch it so we can talk about it. Nobody said anything. Nothing at all. But I've heard people talk about the Game of Thrones one. Sad. And I can see why now. It's just underwhelming. It's like, whatever. Okay. And I don't really have anything else to say besides the next season comes out in 2 years. I won't even remember this show even existed in 2 years. You know? I'm sure I'll see advertisements for it and go, oh, yeah, whatever. Hey, the Lord of the Rings, oh, wow. I won't even care. I mean, Game of Thrones shows 24 when it was on, Dexter when it was on. I mean, all those other shows like that, you were waiting. When's the next season coming out? When's the next season coming out? This one, I care less. Give it or take it. I don't care. Anyway, all right. Well, that just feels like I wasted, was that 8 episodes, an hour at a time? Like 8 hours of my life. A little bit more, probably more like 9 hours because there's some episodes with a little longer. By just a few minutes. So, but then so just blah. Well, I need to watch the Game of Thrones ones. What I'm going to watch. I plan on watching next. We'll see what I can get to because I also need to finish and watch the last episode of Kenobi, which I know is not going to be worth it. but I feel like I at least need to watch that one last episode. All right, well, that was just blah. I definitely don't recommend anybody waste their time watching it. You know, I mean, if you have never ever watched Lord of the Rings, you don't know anything about it, you may enjoy this. You may like it. It may be all right. You know what I mean? I could see then it being all right because you don't know who Sauron is and all that other stuff. And Gandalf, you don't know who he is, so you still wouldn't know who you still wouldn't know who the meteor dude was. At this point, you still wouldn't know who he is. And all you know about Sauron is he's a bad guy, and you would know when he said I think it was a gift and stuff like that. You wouldn't know that Sauron had ever said that stuff. So, you know, you may be surprised. But if you know any of it, then you're not surprised at all. It was just blah. It gives a really accurate summation of what I thought about this episode. well, you know, go on to the next one. So please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. And I'll see you on the next one. And thank you for watching Crane's Bar and Grill. Bye.